sights to see, rolling hills or city streets, ocean to ocean and all in between. It's out there just waiting on you and me. So look alive, 'cause while I was waiting for you, paradise is on the other side.
Welcome to Unreasonable, put on by the Jacksonville Civic Council. Interesting interviews from Jacksonville's most iconic entrepreneurs, CEOs, and wonderful success stories. They do things that are unexpected, unreasonably, in order to make their own change. In each episode, you'll meet passionate change makers who are rewriting the rules and daring to dream bigger for their community and our city. My hope that their stories ignite something in you, that you'll be inspired to reimagine what's possible and lead with purpose in your work, your life, and right here in Jacksonville. You're going to really be inspired. Welcome to another episode of Unreasonable. I am a member of the Civic Council and your host, Josh Martino. Today, we have John Baker on the show. Like all the guests on Unreasonable, John has lived much of his life pursuing ambitious goals, even when they seemed improbable or impractical to others. And he lives to make the world and those around him better. John, welcome to Unreasonable.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered to be here and look forward to it.
It's going to be great. We're going to dive right in. So your dad started the business that became Florida Rock in 1929, and it was doing well with a couple of sand mines and a lot of concrete trucks. Then the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Your dad wanted to join the Marines. So what happened?
He was age 36, way past prime time for being a new lieutenant in the Marine Corps. But he was determined. In fact, December 8th, he walked into the recruiter's office and said, I want to join. I'd like to be an officer. And they went through his background, and he had poured a lot of concrete for camp. He poured the concrete at Camp Landing. He poured concrete at a munitions factory in Alabama. And they said, look, we appreciate you, but you're a military contractor. You cannot join the service. You have to stay at home.
It was a conflict of interest?
Yes. I mean, it was just, we need you here more than we need you there. And he said, well, what's a military contractor? And they explained, and he said, oh, you mean my concrete trucks are the problem? And he said, yeah. They said, yes, we need you here to help develop things. And so that week, he sold all his concrete trucks to the government, walked in, said, I'm no longer a military contractor, I'm signing up. And, you know, the interesting part about all that was the top tax rate at that point was 90%. So he was going to serve his country in the way he wanted to, and it didn't matter what it cost him.
That is literally the definition of unreasonable.
Yes.
That's why we're here talking about those stories. That goes beyond the pale to build a business of tremendous value, a family business, and because of your passion to serve your country, you're willing to basically give it up or give up a large portion of it to do what you want to do and take an unreasonable route in life.
It's a great story.
It is a great story.
He spent 4 years in the Pacific, had 2 young kids. It was a real sacrifice.
Your dad, Tom Baker, was a legendary and highly admired figure in Jacksonville, as was your older brother, Ted. What was it like to be a young member of the Baker family?
It was fantastic. And they were both as different as night and day, and I'd say they were my 2 best friends.
Oh, that's great. What are some of the lessons that you took from your father, from his life and business and just being your dad?
He was a great storyteller, and that's a great way to communicate. And I learned that from him. And I learned that, you know, he was unreasonable, certainly. He was undaunted. He was not scared of anything. He was a good businessman, but a very conservative businessman. And my brother Ted, on the other hand, was a good businessman and a way more aggressive businessman. But they both grew because they were hardworking, smart, and relentless.
So you were able to see two very different styles, a great storyteller, someone maybe not necessarily risk averse, but more conservative, and then another style altogether with someone who was willing to, shake it up a little bit, diversify, or take chances.
Absolutely.
And did that help you develop a style somewhere in between?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it was somewhere in between. I would never have the nerve to say I was like either one of them.
I like that. It's amazing. Well, as you got older, it would seem natural for you to join the family business too. Your dad founded the company. Ted became president of the company. It was very successful, but you had different ideas. What happened?
I had it in my mind that I did not want to just go into the family business because I was a member of the family. I went in the Marines, went to law school, went in the Marines, was going to be a lawyer. And when I got back from the Marines, my brother said, let's go for a ride. And we got in the car and we drove somewhere, and he said, look, I know you want to be a lawyer, but I need you to come to work for the company. It's bigger than I can run by myself. Finding good people is difficult, and I want you to come work. And that, he had me at hello because instead of being entitled, I felt like I was invited.
You were wanted and needed.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that is a big difference. Did you? So you didn't feel like you were giving anything up to do this dream you may have had to join the family business. You just felt now the door has been opened rather than it was always open. I could walk through it anytime I wanted.
Right, exactly.
Big difference.
Big difference to me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So your dad had long retired. Ted and you were leading Florida Rock, now a public company. And in 1993, you decided to expand into the cement business, which you saw as more profitable than sand and rock. And that decision was loaded with huge obstacles and challenges. What happened next?
We chose Alachua County as where we were going to build the cement plant because there was a great limestone deposit that we had there. And that's the key raw material for cement. And it wasn't well received. We were going to spend $100 million. We were going to have good jobs, but we were going to burn coal. And Alachua County wanted no part of it. And so first we had to get the plant zoned. And we worked really hard to do that. Many hearings, very contentious hearings, and we got it. And we started building the plant. We got halfway through it, and a group of concerned citizens got a petition together and got a referendum on the ballot for a clean air ordinance in Gainesville. And the clean air ordinance didn't prohibit any type of business other than a cement plant. And I'll never forget going to my brother and saying, what are we going to do? And he said, I don't know. I mean, we've got $50 million invested in this plant. We've got to finish it. And I said, well, I think we've got to run a political campaign too. He says, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. You'll never win a political campaign. You've got to win it some other way. And I said, we'll go at it every way we can, but we're going to run a political campaign. And so we knew we had a tough battle. And we spent $300,000 or $400,000 on TV ads. And, I've talked at every Rotary Club, and you could.
What were the pros that you were talking about to
jobs,
try and sway? Yeah, jobs.
Jobs that it really was not a polluting monster. You were burning limestone, which is the same thing you use to quell the emissions at power plants. And so we had a lot of pitches. Nothing worked. And Friday or Saturday before the election on Tuesday, the Gainesville Sun came out and endorsed it. But it was such a good article, we were happy about it. Then the Alligator, the student newspaper, came out in our favor, which stunned me. That was great, but probably the biggest thing was we had come up with the idea that we were right next to the city limits of Newberry, Florida. We went to see the city commission in Newberry and said, listen, why don't you annex us in to Newberry? You will get all the taxes from the cement plant, which included electricity use and included obviously property taxes on a $100 million plant.
Annex just the property where the plant was.
Just the property where the plant was. And they loved the idea. And of course, the quid pro quo was that they would opt out of the ordinance if it were passed, which they had the right to do. And they had to vote twice. One was the week before the election, one was the week after, and they voted to pass it. And so when election night came, I went down to our hunting camp in Suwannee County. They said, why don't you have a victory party? And I said, there ain't gonna be no victory. But I want to watch it, and I want to watch it live. And long story short, we were ahead by 50 votes with 10% of the votes in, and that dwindled throughout the night. And so we were ahead about 15 votes with 80%, and then we heard nothing. And the last 20% just didn't come in. It didn't come in. Well, it turned out that they had come in, but the supervisor of elections was not on our side, and they were not going to publish it until it was too late for anybody to know about it. And we won by 25 votes. It was 50.001 to 49.999. And, you know.
So those 25 votes essentially defined the business going forward.
It really did. And it changed our company. We built the plant. I became CEO after that, and it was profitable, very profitable from day one. And then we started attracting really good people to help us run the company. And we went, in the 10 years that I was CEO, from pre-tax cash flow of about $60 million to about pre-tax cash flow of $450 million. And the stock price went up 17 times.
Wow. Did the favor of the town with the jobs now that you could do it, jobs were actually being created, the positive impact, the tax revenue, all of the positive things that you would espouse to get these votes and win over the crowd, so to speak, did that eventually happen as the success of the company continued to
It absolutely happened.
Yeah.
There were a few bumps along the way, be sure, but we came back and doubled the plant 8 or 10 years later and had no opposition.
Wow. Well, in 2007, you surprised people after all this progress when you sold Florida Rock. 6 months later, the market falls apart. How did you know it was time to sell, and was that decision based on skill or luck or perhaps a bit of both?
I would absolutely say luck, but we knew a recession was coming, but that would not have made us sell it. We've been through a lot of recessions in our day. We knew how to handle them. We knew what to do. It wasn't a lot of fun, and we, of course, had no idea it was going to be like it was. Vulcan Materials, who had been the largest company in our industry and was run by friends of ours, came down, and every year they'd come down and make us a pitch to buy us, and it was always too low. And this time they came down, and they gave us an offer that we couldn't refuse. It was literally twice what we thought the company was worth. And we were public. And I'll never forget, Ted and I walked out of the meeting, and we looked at each other and we said, we got no choice. And, being a public company, even if you owned 30% like we did not give you the right to just run it because you wanted to keep running it.
You've got shareholders you're accountable to.
Exactly. And so we sold it, and it turned out to be a wonderful decision. Completely luck.
Completely luck. Well, I mean, that seems like an unreasonable path the entire way, kind of just swinging in the face of so much opposition and difficulty to get these things done. And then once you were able to get them done, proving yourself right that all these things were the right decision to keep going forward.
It's been fun.
Yeah, sounds like you got to make your mark on the family company pretty significantly in time.
I think I did.
Yeah. Well, on a local level, speaking of your service, the height of the JEA scandal when CEO Aaron Zahn was put on leave for termination in December of 19, the old board was basically replaced. And you were already serving on the board of the Port Authority, where you were making a nice impact. Why did you accept a request to move from the port of the JEA during an obviously turbulent time?
Well, I was chairman of the port at that time. Eric Green was running it as he is today. The port was running on automatic pilot as far as the board was concerned. It was a fun board to be on because the people were great. Eric was and is great, but JEA was a problem. And I felt like if I was going to serve the city, I could do a lot more for JEA than I would ever do for the port.
Basically, you're saying instead of just riding on cruise control, let's go where the need is the greatest.
Yeah.
And obviously your skill set and reputation could help, get JEA going in the right direction. So when you got there, what did you think needed to be done first? Because there was a lot of negative public sentiment, a lot of negative headlines. There was a lot to do. How do you tackle the priority of what happens first?
Having a new board enabled us to set a new direction and speak very loudly and clearly that we were not going to sell JEA. But beyond that, what I felt like we really had to do was get the confidence of the workforce. They'd been through a lot. They'd heard that they would probably all be fired if it was sold, or at least half of them would be fired if it was sold. It was tough times to be an employee of JEA, and they resented it. And when we came in, the person who had been the CFO of JEA and really should have been the CEO instead of Aaron Zahn was the acting head, and she was absolutely terrific to us. She taught us the business. She, showed us where we could do things, where we couldn't, and she was not going to stay. But we had our first meeting, and I'd called her up before the meeting, and I said, I want you to know that I'm going to recommend that you be fired. And you've been wonderful. You've done everything right, but you do not have the support of the rank and file at JEA. And if this board's going to be successful, we've got to really clean house. At the end of our first meeting, I said, I'm going to recommend that we fire this person, and explain why I thought we should. And it got deathly quiet. And then one by one, every member of that board said, we agree with you. It's tough to do because she's been great, but we've got to move on. Mm-hmm. And that was the first big step of our board to unanimously agree to do that. And I think from that point on, everything became a little bit easier.
Why does it matter to you personally to go where the challenge is? And is that just something that's in your nature when you see when you see a fire burning, you run towards it instead of away from it?
I love this city, and I want to do whatever I can to help make it better. And JEA was just it was a clear example of why that would be something that would make a difference.
Well, the name of this podcast is Unreasonable. How has John Baker been unreasonable in life?
Well, I wouldn't say unreasonable. Gary Chartrand would say it, but I would say relentless and never give up. Do whatever it takes to make something happen. You know, the cement plant, and then the creation of charter schools in the minority community, which has sort of been my philanthropy thing. Those have been my greatest achievements in life, and they were filled with potholes and roadblocks, and just keeping your head down and never giving up is what.
Why is education so vital to your mission?
You know, our office at Florida Rock was on 21st Street in the middle of Northwest Jacks, and we tried to do what we could to help that neighborhood, but it was clear that those people really didn't have a chance. And I made a promise to myself, and unfortunately out loud to my kids, that when I had time, when I wasn't running Florida Rock, that I was going to do something to help racial inequality in Jacksonville. And so I asked people all over, what do you do? And what does a white businessman do to tackle a thing like that? And I talked a lot to black leaders. And it was almost like they had a script, because they all said, whatever you can do to improve education of our kids will change this city. And so I adopted that as my mantra. It wasn't that education was so important, it was that Jacksonville was so important.
So as part of the Civic Council, there's a goal to make Jacksonville a world-class city by 2032. Do you think that's achievable?
I think it's very achievable. It won't be easy. There again, we'll have roadblocks, and there'll be naysayers that say it won't happen. I think we'll do it by 2030.
I like that. How do we go about doing that? Where's the first place to dig in? Is it education? Is it poverty? Is it hunger? Is it, building new buildings and bringing businesses from the outside in? Is it highlighting the talent we already have, the homegrown talent? Or is it all of those things at once?
It's all of those things at once. And, it's easy to say, let's build new buildings. We've got to build new buildings. We've got to make downtown Jacksonville a more appealing place to live and be entertained and go to dinner and have a vibrant nightlife as well as day life. We've got to be safe. We've absolutely got to be safe, and we've got to be the place where people want to come, and it's not just an old stage southern city, but a place that is welcoming, fun, and a great lifestyle.
Sounds like opportunity, providing opportunity, whether it's a charter school in Northwest Jacks to a very deserving community, or professional opportunities. It seems like you enjoy creating opportunities for others. How do you perceive what they do with those opportunities? What does it mean to you when someone takes those opportunities and creates success with them?
That's the reward. One of our kids from Tiger Academy got a Fulbright scholarship the other day. Without Tiger Academy, she probably wouldn't have gone to college.
And that's everything.
And that's everything.
Well, that's a great place to wrap up. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story, your success, just the realities of life with us. And thank you for your time and coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for joining us on Unreasonable. Look for us online, follow us on social media, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Ocean to